Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Checkmate Humanity. It is evening for me. And, I just realized that I made a mistake in labeling this live stream. I labeled it day one. Uh, it's actually day 5 because this trial actually started last week with jury selection. So today was actually day 5 of the trial. It wasn't day 1. So I was able to change the title, but I'm going to have to go back and change the thumbnail later. So my apologies for my confusion on that. I've been sort of playing by ear how I'm going to cover this trial as it goes on because, wasn't quite sure since there are not going to be cameras in the trial. And since especially at the beginning, welcome everybody who's coming in. Since especially at the beginning of trials, they tend to wind up, slowly. Like the opening statements are nice recaps of cases, and you can get a good kind of general idea of where the prosecution, hello Tiggy girl, where the prosecution and the defense are going. There tends to be, because these cases kind of go in a linear way and they're not, produced by Hollywood, and they don't go in a narrative storytelling way, there can be ups and downs in terms of that. And that's going to be even more boring, trying to follow along in real time when you're just kind of watching Twitter streams and when you're watching, updates from a website. But I have been watching the updates from the website today. And, I'm not going to lie to you. There have been times when I've actually been emotional just watching the updates from the website. Hey, Marsha Kelly. Yes, I do remember you. Hello. Good to see you. So, I think I'm still inclined, I was hoping to be able to kind of replay the audio, but it'll probably take a while for audio to get posted, and I don't want to wait too late for the audio to get posted. So I've decided that I'm going to go ahead and read through, what was posted by East Idaho News as the day went along. I'm going to show you some clips of, things that were posted on Twitter just as the day progressed, and, some images that were posted. Please remember to hit the thumbs up, and if you haven't already, subscribe and consider becoming a member. And I do plan to cover this trial every day in one way, shape, or form, because I've been covering this case. I've been following this case since the kids were declared missing in December 2019. So let me share the screen, add to the stream, and show you some things that Nate Eaton was tweeting earlier. That was just giving color to what was going on. So these are the, I guess, the final court sketches that came out. And I used a couple of them in my thumbnail, but I guess that's the defense attorney, Archibald, and that's the prosecutor. And that was Kay Woodcock. I'm not exactly sure who that was. I'm not sure if that's supposed to be Colby. I don't know. I don't remember. I didn't see exactly who was the last person to testify. You guys might know. But I thought this was an interesting little scrum here.
How'd it go, Jim?
Never know, do you?
You think Lori's going to take the stand?
No defense.
I don't know. We always make that decision at the end.
All right. Anything you want to say to people in East Idaho watching the trial?
I hope they have better things to do than watch this trial.
How's Lori?
I thought that was a really weird thing to say. I hope they have better things to do than watch this trial. Well, maybe they do, but isn't it a little bit judgy of you, considering the fact that a few people died and were buried in your town? You know, some of your citizens? My goodness. I mean, I just thought that was kind of unnecessary, you know? Uh, that's weird. It's
How do you feel about all this?
Is she
Well,
relieved that the death
me.
penalty is off the table?
Yes, that's a major relief that the death penalty's gone.
Less burden on you guys, right?
Yes, that's a big deal for a
Oh,
defense
God.
lawyer to get rid.
Okay, I need to go back here a little bit. Do you guys see the Yahoo on the right over here? The Yahoo with the big old media. Let me see if I can point to it here on the screen. This guy with the says he's media and then he has press. If you really are media, if you really are press, you don't have to wear it in cartoonishly big letters on your hat and your shirt. That's not press. That's JLR. And you know what? We should make I should make merchandise that says that. That's not press, that's JLR. Or that's not press, that's a tragedy pimp. I mean, and I'm sure maybe we should look at his page and see if he's posted anything going, look at me, look at me. Sorry, I'm in my tragedy pimping coverage right now, but oh my God, it's cringe. He is such a weirdo. Hey, Shar. Highland, will you be covering the trial for the murder of Evelyn Mae Boswell by her mother, Megan Boswell? That baby was so precious. I read they have pushed the trial to 2025. You know what, Shar? I didn't follow that case closely, but I am very interested in that case. So I'm going to have to play that by ear. I'm not sure. I might though. Yeah, they do. They do, Marsha Kelly. They do. Let's see if this keeps going.
Deal for a defense lawyer to get rid of the death penalty.
Has the state offered you guys any deal?
Well, we talked a lot about agreements, but we weren't able to reach one.
How long do you think the trial's going to last, Jim?
At least another month.
Another month?
At least another month. Another month. Wow.
Is it going too fast, too slow?
I'm sorry?
Is justice going too fast, too slow on this case?
Well, yeah.
Who's asking that?
Has she any comments about seeing Kay for the first time in a while?
Nope, I don't know her personally, but she's a nice lady. Yep. No problem at all.
What do you have for lunch every day? That's what we want to know. Winco.
Well, we're not going to do lunch over a Winco tomorrow, so I don't get attacked by you guys. Don't
What does
get
Lori
tackled.
have for
Definitely
lunch?
put that into
Lori
consideration.
lunch here as well? Or?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably have a bologna sandwich downstairs.
Oh my God.
Winco's better than that. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, Jeff.
What an odd guy. Let's see if there's more here.
Or obviously over the several months.
I hope so. I hope she trusts me.
You guys objected today about the October 2nd shooting incident being admitted to the court. What's your thoughts on it?
That's funny. I think that was JLR asking him a question and he just completely ignored him as if he wasn't there. I'm pretty sure that's what just happened there. I'm going to look him up right now and see what he tweeted about this. Let's see. Am I sharing that? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he does fit perfectly with Lori, Tiggy Girl. My God. Okay, here's his view. Here's his view.
Mr. Pryor, do you plan to attend the entire trial of Lori Daybell?
Oh no, this is different person. They just ignore him. I think all right, put a 1 in the chat if you think that the media has been briefed about JLR. Put a 1 in the chat if you think that the media has been told by the court. If you see a guy with a cartoonishly large media printed on his hat, don't answer his questions. Let's see what JLR says right here.
No comment. That is Chad Daybell's attorney. No comment. Outside the Ada County
Wow.
Courthouse, downtown Boise.
Good job, Captain
First day of
Obvious.
the Lori Vallow
I'm sorry, I just have no. Yeah, I agree with you. Thank you for voting, Tiggy Girl. I agree with you, Shar. And that I think there are a lot of people in this world. There are people who know right from wrong. Okay, so JLR is the guy on the screen, right here that you can see with the big media. His name is Jonathan Lee Riches. Jonathan Lee Riches. He's a felon. He's an ex-convict. He spent 10 years in jail for major white-collar crimes. It has the record, some sort of record, I don't know where it's documented, definitely on Wikipedia, for the most lawsuits filed. So when he impersonated a bunch of people, he committed wire fraud, he embezzled money. Hello, Smiley. He embezzled money. And then he went to jail. And while he was in jail, he made it his job to file lawsuits. Okay. And now he's out of jail. And in my opinion, he's a con artist now. And he's a troll. And he's using his YouTube channel to act like he's a investigative reporter. But, another word for that is tragedy pimp. So he goes all around the country wearing this, hat on his head that says media. But it's not accurate to say that you are the media when you immediately take a stance on exactly who committed the murder. So he'll do things like sit in front of the courthouse and scream and yell that Buster Murdaugh should be arrested for the murder of Stephen Smith. That's not being the media. That is being an activist. Okay. It's all, in my opinion, for money, clicks, views. He raises money to go to these places on his channel, and then he goes to these places. He makes things up. And he doxes people on his channel. So when people call him out, he will go to extreme lengths to share their private information. He's done that recently to the Glare and other people on his channel. So there's a contingency of people in the true crime community who do that. They don't care who they hurt. They don't care who they bamboozle to keep their channel running and growing with false subs. Because, and when I mean false subs, anybody could get attention by making a bunch of crap up about true crime cases. Anybody could do that. It takes yeah, I agree. It actually takes hard work and some talent to grow a channel without lying to your audience and making stuff up to do it. Okay, that's what takes talent. That is what is to be respected and admired, is being able to deliver content that isn't attempting to maliciously lie about somebody else so that you can get more views on your channel. And there is a whole contingency of people in the true crime community that do just that. So, but we're here to talk about the Lori. Sorry, I'm off on a little bit of a tangent here because it's so frustrating that YouTube plays a very big role in allowing that all to continue, and it's frustrating because YouTube really YouTube laps up that content. They love that kind of content. And it's harmful. It can be really, really harmful to people. But I'm going to switch over now to the East Idaho News tab, and I'm going to refresh one more time to see if the audio is there, and it is not. So we're going to go to the I'm pretty sure the digest is where oh, this was day 6. Huh. Okay. So here I'm gonna start reading through the digest of what was what happened in court today, and starting from the morning. I'm not gonna go through all that. There's a bunch of leading up. I'm gonna start right with the opening arguments and not all the stuff leading up to it. I'm going to make that biggest on the screen. Okay. So Tylee had money. Lori wanted it. Wait. So I'm just trying to get to the just to note, there are 10 men and 8 women on the jury. And they don't know, eventually it's going to be, it's going to be 12, but they need to have, 6 alternates in order to, just in case people drop out. If it's really going to be a 2-month trial, it's very possible that somebody could get sick or whatever. But they don't know who the alternate's going to be. It says here, youngest juror appears to be in her 20s, a woman. Oldest appears to be in her 60s or 70s, also a woman. Most appear to be in their 40s. And then the jury instructions. And then the clerk reads the indictment against Lori, along with her not guilty plea. And she just looks down as he reads the charges. And then the opening statement starts, and Blake says, and I read this, I read through this a little bit earlier, and I was like, wow. I'm so, like, I think I might have even said this in one of my videos a while back, like, a year or so ago in my other true crime channel, where I it just really rang true. It says, Fremont County Lindsay Blake will be giving opening statements on behalf of the statement. She moves to a lectern in the courtroom and has a presentation. She will be presenting money, power, and sex. That's what this case is about. It is just so true. The defendant used money, power, and sex to get what she wanted. It didn't matter what it was. Tylee had money. Lori wanted it. Tylee's gone. JJ took time, and he also lost his father. When he lost his father, he became much more difficult to care for. He was entitled to Social Security benefits. The defendant didn't want to have to take care of JJ anymore. He had money. JJ's gone. Tammy had a life insurance policy. Lori wanted Chad all to herself. Tammy's gone. Blake describes how Tylee's remains were found. You will hear it described as a massive bone and tissue. That's what was left of this beautiful young woman, the defendant's daughter. Her DNA was found on a pickaxe and shovel, later located on a shed on Chad's property. And then a picture on the screen shows Tylee's remains, pieces of flesh and bones. I didn't know that. I'm not sure if that was just revealed in these opening statements, but I didn't know that the DNA had been found on those items in Chad's property. Blake describes how JJ was found, and on the screen appears a black plastic bag wrapped in plastic and a cut in the bag. Lori Woodcock is wiping away tears, and he is distributing tissues to family members. Kay Woodcock is crying. I mean, already people are getting emotional, and there must have been such a buildup to this point in the case, and now they're finally here in the court. Hey Max, for what it's worth, Zachariah Anderson will be sentenced May 16th after being convicted of first-degree murder, Kenosha, Wisconsin. There was no evidence that ties him to the murder. None. Oh, interesting. That's really interesting. Thanks for the info. Okay. That is really interesting when you think about this case too, Max, because in this case, it's about conspiracy. Lori has alibis, and Lori can claim that she wasn't directly involved in the case, but this is about conspiracy and her involvement in it. So it will be really interesting to see how all of this is argued. Okay, continuing. Blake shows an autopsy photo of Tammy Daybell as she says Lori and Chad are in Hawaii getting married. The missing children, the sudden death of Tammy, the quick marriage of Chad, and the defendant left so many questions for those still grieving the loss of Tammy and those still wondering 24/7 about the whereabouts of the children. It was so shocking. Blake describes financial transactions that occurred with money being moved from accounts. This case actually starts in October 2018. That's when the defendant met Chad Daybell for the very first time. Yep. Blake says jury will hear from Melanie Gibb and Zulema Pastenis during the trial, two of Lori's friends who were there when Lori and Chad met for the first time. There are interviews with TC attorneys talking with his sister and brother. Well, okay, thanks. Blake tells jurors they will hear about Chad and Lori's religious beliefs, that Chad and Lori called themselves James and Elena and believed they were religious figures. At the time they met, they were both married to other people. Their spouses were both alive and well when they first met. Remember, the defendant will remove any obstacle in her way to get what she wants, and she wanted Chad Daybell. You will hear about a rating system of light and dark. The defendant told others that with the help of Chad, she could rate people as light and dark. Pretty soon, this system evolved. Lori does not appear to look at jury or prosecutors at all. She is looking down. I heard from other commentary that she was taking copious notes during the trial, or during all of it. The defendant used casting that involved prayer and energy work. Often this casting didn't work, and the beliefs evolved to zombies. A common theme was the body had to be destroyed. That's Lori's brother, and how Alex would do anything for Lori, whom he moved to Rexburg to be closer to Chad. Alex quit his job. I didn't know that. If Chad and Lori asked, Alex did it. Wow. Alex's purpose was to protect Lori. He was a warrior, and that was his job. Blake says the defendant took no action when Tylee and JJ disappeared. What you won't hear when JJ went missing is that the defendant did anything to find him. That's right. Blake says, we will hear from April Raymond, Lori's friend, during the trial. Defendant was telling people she was here on a religious mission to gather the $144,000, so she needed to spend her time and energy there. And there's a past image of the prosecutor. Blake, one of the prosecutors. The defendant told others because she was translated, she didn't have to repent. Blake says when Alex first moved to Rexburg, he texted Lori and set the Wi-Fi password to too many kids. Lori responded, funny. Wow. What the fuck, man? Blake talking about the day a gunman approached Tammy Daybell in her driveway on October 9th, 2019. Originally thought to be a paintball gun. Blake says Lori was mad that night after incident and texted someone, he can't do anything wrong, referring to Alex, meaning, I think they meant to say he can't do anything right, referring to Alex. More details on the driveway gun incident here. Kay Woodcock has been staring at Lori for at least 3 minutes straight. Wow. Man, it must have been intense in there. Blake says after Tammy died, Lori met Chad's kids and they were all over each other. Chad told his kids that Lori had a young daughter who recently died. Oh my God. And this was before they were declared missing, you guys. Who recently died, but there was no mention of JJ, and Lori never said anything. Blake talks about the malachite wedding rings that were ordered before Tammy died and how Chad and Lori exchanged those rings on the beach in Hawaii. Lori now looking at Blake as she addresses the jury. Many jurors intently listening while others taking notes. One has been writing nonstop. Police got involved in the investigation for the missing kids in November 2019. Blake says when Lori spoke with Melanie Gibb after the kids were reported missing, Gibb asked Lori where JJ was. Lori responded, I know exactly where he is. Well, there you go. Admission of guilt, right? She knew exactly. After he was missing, she knew exactly where he was. Blake says Tammy Daybell died at the hands of another and died of asphyxiation, according to Utah Medical Examiner. So this was the first time we heard as a public how Tammy actually died and that it was asphyxiation. After Tammy died, Alex Cox said, I hope I'm not their fall guy, referring to Chad and Lori. Alex died the day after he said that. And that was ruled to be natural causes, but sure sounds sketchy. The defendant is charged with multiple crimes and then lists each charge. After saying Tylee Ryan's name, Blake adds her daughter. After saying JJ Vallow's name, Blake adds her son. Blake says, when you talk about first-degree murder, the defendant personally didn't have to end someone's life to have committed the crime. Very interesting. A photo was shown of JJ Vallow's arm wrapped in duct tape after he died and Tammy Daybell's hands after she died. Blake says those hands will never do anything again. Then a photo was shown of Chad and Lori holding hands on the beach in Hawaii. Blake concludes her opening statements. Jim Archibald gives the opening statement. So now Jim Archibald comes to the stand. And he uses something different. He says, over the past 32 years, he has been assigned to 27 murder cases. They are difficult cases. I was assigned to this case, and I'm paid by the taxpayers. So thank you for paying your taxes. That also is a really weird thing to say. I don't know, just rather flip for somebody to say in the middle of a murder trial. Archibald says 99% of cases are resolved before trial. He introduces his co-counsel, John Thomas, and Brandon Hobbs as an investigator. Archibald says being a defense lawyer is a hard job and mentions that 8 years ago his office was bombed. Okay. I'm wondering, why would he want to bring that up? Is he needing to like evoke sympathy here? Okay. Archibald now talking about who Lori is, where she was born, where she grew up, how many children how many children she has, and that people are drawn to Lori because of her personality and bright smile. Archibald says Lori was such a responsible mother that Kay Woodcock wanted her to adopt JJ, a child with special needs, as JJ's parents could not take care of him. Lori was married to Charles at the time. Charles and Lori agreed to adopt him. The evidence will show Lori was a kind and loving mother. The evidence will show Lori had an interest in religion, especially the end of times. Some people could care less about biblical prophecies. Some people care a lot about it. Thankfully, in this country, we get the freedom to choose. Absolutely. Archibald to jurors. We haven't been able to agree what happened to these children. How did they die? When they died? That's where you come in. Archibald tells jurors they don't need to write down what he's saying. Some of you are really good note takers, but you don't have to memorize what I'm telling you. Archibald talks about Chad and Alex as co-conspirators, but tells jurors their focus will be on Lori. So that signals that they are going to be pointing the finger at Chad and Alex. Archibald to jury after reading indictment. Did she kill, or did she assist, or did she encourage, or did she command? Prosecutors aren't sure what happened, but they want you to be sure. Archibald says jurors need to be assured beyond a reasonable doubt, and state has burden of proving proving the defendant guilty. Lori never has to prove her innocent, but the state must prove the crime beyond a reasonable doubt. If after all the evidence or lack of evidence, you have a reasonable doubt, you must find her not guilty. Archibald says Lori Daybell was in her Rexburg apartment when J.J. Vallow died, in the apartment of Alex Cox, and was with Melanie Gibb and David Warwick. Archibald says Lori was with Melanie Boudreau in Hawaii, then when Tammy Daybell died. That is Lori's alibi. Archibald says publicity has tainted so many people throughout the state, and stresses media exposure is not evidence. He says if any of the jurors have heard anything, they need to set it aside and start the trial with a clean slate. You're here to focus on what she did, not on what Chad Daybell did or what Alex Cox did. You're here to determine if there was a conspiracy. So they're basically saying Chad and Alex did this. Archibald wraps up. Boyce says we take a recess. There's a new recess. Larry Woodcock told me he and Lori made eye contact 8 times during opening statements. Lori remained at her table during the break and took notes. Let's keep going. Kay Woodcock is on the stand now. Kay Woodcock. Wood asks Kay how many children she has and if any of them ever had children they could not care for. Kay responds yes. Her son and his girlfriend had issues when she got pregnant with JJ. When JJ was born, he had drugs in his system. Kay says when JJ was born at 30 weeks and was in NICU for weeks after JJ was released from the hospital, he went home with Kay and Larry because the state took custody of the baby due to drugs in his system. The Woodcocks were deemed as JJ's caregivers. JJ's parents never gained custody of the baby. Lori is looking at Kay as she speaks, and Rob Wood asks Kay to point at Lori and describe what she's wearing today. Kay does this. Kay says Charles and Lori approached Kay and Larry saying they would love to adopt JJ when JJ did not go back to his biological parents. Kay said he and Larry thought about it. Kay said she and Larry thought about it and ultimately agreed to have Lori and Charles adopt JJ. Kay says Charles and Lori have a much better lifestyle for raising a child than what Larry and Kay had. When JJ was adopted, he moved to Arizona with Charles and Lori. JJ's name was Canaan, but was legally changed to Joshua JJ Vallow when he was adopted. A condition of the adoption was that Larry and Kay remain involved in JJ's life. Kay says they saw JJ every chance they could. After JJ originally moved from Arizona, Kay and Larry went to Arizona within a month because they had a hard time detaching from him. Kay says they visited him about every 3 months from Louisiana. After JJ moved to Hawaii with his parents, Kay and Larry visited less frequently, but still maintained contact through the phone and FaceTime. Kay says she had a good relationship with Charles and Lori. Charles and I were very close. We always got along, and Lori, she was just a doll. We were good friends. Kay recalls meeting Lori's parents, other family members, and her brother Alex Cox, at family gatherings. After Charles, Lori, and JJ moved back from Hawaii to Arizona, Kay recalls seeing Tylee being her good sister self to JJ. Kay says Tylee often went to her grandparents while they were there, and as she got older, Tylee was busy with her friends. Kay says Lori was a good mom to JJ. She says Charles was hands-on and engaged with his son. Kay recalls staying at Charles and Lori's house in Chandler for 2 weeks in 2019. Charles reached out to Kay and said Lori was gone. He was very distraught. So Kay went to help him with JJ. So this is a period of time when, in 2019, so this is after Lori met Chad in 2018, she just disappeared for something like over like 60 days or something like that. It was like 58 days. She just disappeared. Wouldn't say where she was. And then I guess Kay went and helped Charles. Between February 1st in 2019 and the end of March 2019, Kay and JJ were back and forth between Arizona and Louisiana. Charles and JJ then moved to Houston. Kay said that they still didn't know where Lori was, and Houston was good for Charles' work. Plus, it had good schools for JJ, and Lake Charles, Louisiana is about 2.5 hours away. Kay says Charles was a financial planner, and she began helping Charles with his business in February 2019 because he was distraught over his separation from Lori. Because Kay helped him, she had access to his emails and banking information. Lori moved to Texas in April 2019, but then she and Charles moved to Chandler in June 2019. Kay says in February 2019, Charles approached her about having her named as beneficiary on his $1 million life insurance policy and to take Lori off. Kay said within a week of Charles's death, the insurance company contacted her to say she was a beneficiary. Kay says Lori texted her after Charles died. Kay has Lori's old phone numbers written on paper in front of her and reads out Lori's 2 phone numbers. Kay last saw JJ the weekend of May 17th, 2019 in Louisiana. They had a pizza party to celebrate JJ's birthday. JJ spent the weekend with his grandparents and then went back home to Houston. Kay says she had contact with JJ 3 more times before he died. She had a FaceTime call with him after Charles died. He normally had an iPad or a phone, and he would walk around and talk to Larry and me. He wouldn't hold the device to him. He'd walk around and see the ceiling most of the time, places where he lived. But this incident was different. JJ did not have the device in his hand. Someone was holding it for him, and it was a short call. He would look up, and whoever it was obviously taller than him. Kay describes another FaceTime call where JJ was in a foul mood and he didn't want to talk. She says JJ was having a meltdown, and Kay was very upset that Lori waited until evening when JJ was overtired to chat with her. Kay says the conversation was under a minute. And also, I think by that time, Lori had stopped giving medication to giving JJ his medication. Kay says the last conversation she ever had contact with JJ Vallow was on August 10, 2019. It was a very short call, less than a minute. Kay then attempted over the next few months to contact her grandson, but could never get a response from Lori. Kay made arrangements to go to Phoenix to pick up JJ and fly him back to his father's memorial service in Louisiana. Kay was going to then fly JJ back to Phoenix, but it never happened. Kay says JJ was allowed to go, but Lori never answered any of her messages or made arrangements. Lori did not go to Charles's memorial service, of course. John Thomas has an objection. He wants to make sure the jury is out of the room. Jury is sent out while Thomas raises an objection about papers Kay Woodcock referenced containing Lori's phone numbers. Thomas wants to know how often Kay has met with prosecutors over the years and says the state never told them. Blah, 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 blah. I don't think that's super important. There's a picture of Kay on the stand. There's Lori. There's the sketches. Back from lunch. Wood shows JJ's birth certificate on the screen. Kate confirms it's his birth certificate. Wood shows final decree of adoption. Wood shows Louisiana birth certificate. Wood shows Kay Woodcock photo of JJ. And look at that adorable child. That is just such an adorable child. Let me see. Question, are Kay and Larry allowed to sit completely through the trial now? I heard there was some glitch about Larry being able to be there as he was classified as a witness. You know, I think they got beyond that glitch because it sounds like Larry was in there this morning. So I'm pretty sure they got beyond that glitch, if I'm not mistaken. Oops. Wrong one. Okay. But isn't that an adorable boy? He really is adorable. He looks so happy. It's just so sad, you know? Kay Woodcock says the photo of JJ has always been one of her favorites. It's the picture of JJ buckled into Larry's pickup truck. This is the image. We have it on file as evidence is not being released publicly until the trial is over. Kay describes when she and Larry went to meet with law enforcement after Charles's death, they were very concerned about JJ's well-being. Wood asked Kay if JJ was ever physically with her in November 2019. Kay says no. Kay says on November 8, 2019, she was at home in Louisiana. She had a printer that belonged to Charles, and when she woke up that day, she went to figure out how to use the scanner on the printer. She woke up early, and something told her to go to the computer where she saw Charles's Gmail account. Charles had given her the password, and it worked. Kay noticed a lot of emails in the account, including a confirmation email of an Amazon order that was sent to an address in Rexburg. Kay said after she saw that, she contacted her private investigator and Brandon Boudreau. Kay then went into the browsing history of the Amazon account and saw searches for a beach wedding dress, a bathing suit, men's large white linen top and pants, and malachite wedding rings. The date of the order was October 2, 2019. Isn't that amazing, you guys? I've always been blown away by that. Lori ordered all that stuff for their wedding, before Tammy died. All right. Kay says she met with Rexburg police in January 2020. She says before this situation, she had never heard of Rexburg, Idaho. At the advice of FBI, Kay offered a reward for information on JJ. Kay says they reached out to every media outlet they could to get a word out on the missing children. Kay says she learned Lori married Chad Daybell, and Lori was using Charles's Amazon account to order their items. Kay says she became aware that the bodies of JJ and Tylee were found in Chad's backyard in June 2020. Wood is done asking questions. Now John Thomas will proceed. So here's the cross-examination of Kay Woodcock. Hope you all are doing okay out there. Let me know if you can't hear anything or if you need me to do anything different. All right. Thomas asked Kay about how long she and Larry cared for JJ and the adoption arrangements for JJ. Kay says they really wanted to adopt JJ, but in talking with Lauren and Charles, their atmosphere was a lot more conducive for a baby. Kay says there were no special schools in Lake Charles for children with disabilities. Although Charles was 5 years older than me, he could run circles around a 25-year-old. Lori was 17 years younger than him, and my husband, Larry, was 65. We knew that it was going to be a lot to care for JJ. Lori is looking at Kay as she answers the questions. Kay is focused ahead on Thomas. Kay talks about going to help Charles when he said he wanted a divorce. Lori came in and began arguing with Charles. Melanie Gibb was there, and Kay recorded the conversation. Charles then moved to Houston as it was a better place for JJ. Kay says in 2019, Lori left her husband and her child for 58 days. Yep, that was the number, 58 days. She knows it was 58 days because Charles kept track. She never reached out to JJ. She never reached out to Charles. I mean, that's cold-hearted, man. Yes, this is the thanks, Tiger Girl. Yes, this is the defense asking questions. The cross-examination is the yes, defense asking Kay Woodcock questions. Continuing. Thomas asking her about the printer scanner. Kay says it was weird because she never woke up at 4:30 a.m. with the scanner on her mind. She said it was bothering her. I think it was divine intervention because of what I found when I got everything hooked up, God's hand. Thomas has no further questions. Prosecution has nothing further. Kay Woodcock is dismissed. And next witness will be called. That witness is Brandon Boudreau. Okay, so that's the picture that I was showing earlier that I couldn't figure out who it was, but yes. So this is going to be interesting. Brandon Boudreau. He is dressed in a white shirt and light purple tie. Brandon was married to Melanie Pulowski, Lori's niece. Prosecutor Rachel Smith is questioning him. I haven't seen this yet, so this will be interesting. Brandon was married to Melanie for a little over 10 years. They got married in 2008 and have 4 children. Smith asking Brandon about Melanie's family, her aunts, uncles, and grandparents. Brandon says he met many in the family in Arizona and they spent most holidays together. Brandon says he lived with Lori and Charles for part of his marriage to Melanie. Oh, I didn't know that. They spent a lot of time together and Brandon got to know Lori's children, Colby, Tylee, and JJ. Sorry, I had to take a drink. Brandon, holding back tears, chokes up when he says his oldest son, oh gosh, how sad, was very close to JJ, and they spent a lot of time together. JJ loved to hang out with Brandon kids. He says, JJ was fascinated with traveling, Lori grins, and he loved hanging out with Braxton, Brandon's oldest son. Brandon says he was close with Tylee, and when Tylee was 8, she asked Brandon to baptize her. Oh, gosh. He performed the baptism into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Excuse me. Brandon says Melanie looked at Lori like a mom figure. She was always trying to be like her. Brandon and Charles both had a passion for business sales, and they connected over it. They both loved their families, so it was easy for us to spend time together. The Vallows and Boudreaux spent time together often. Brandon says the last Christmas his family spent with Charles and Lori was in 2018. He says other people were there, including Melanie Gibb and her family. Brandon says everything felt different, and the relationships were not very close. Brandon says when he first married Melanie, her religious level was low, and she didn't enjoy going to church. He says for the most part of their marriage, he pushed to go to church. In the fall of 2018, she started getting really passionate about going to church and certain ideas at church. Melanie began attending firesides, meetings that were not sponsored by the church. She was coming home with different ideas about what she was going to do to be a faithful member of the church. Brandon says Lori was at the firesides, but Charles did not attend. Melanie told Brandon the firesides were her thing and was very clear I was not welcome to come. Interesting. Brandon says Melanie felt a need to go to the temple every single day, which is a little extreme. And that was what Lori did too. She felt a need to go to the temple every day. Brandon says during trips to Disneyland, Melanie would need to go to the temple, and she was focused on the idea that the world was going to end soon. He says they had a disagreement about buying $10,000 worth of food storage because she thought the world was going to end right away. For those of you who don't remember this, after we learned that these kids were missing, we learned that in 2019, we learned that this group thought that the world was going to end in July 2020. Okay? It didn't happen. It didn't happen, right? And like, it's just such a grifting scheme for things like, end of world, end of life, end of the world meal buying companies. It's just, gosh. Brendan says things got more bizarre into 2019. In January, Brendan got a call and text message from Charles that Lori was accusing Charles of infidelity. Brendan says things went from 0 to 100 really quick, and Melanie was adamant not to take sides in the Lori-Charles split up. Brendan says in June 2019, Melanie and his kids went to Utah to stay at Melanie's parents' home. Brendan's grandfather died of a heart attack unexpectedly on June 23rd. Brendan's mom called to tell him about the death, and Melanie said she would not go to the funeral. She didn't want anything to do with it. Wow. After an argument, Brendan went on a walk and came home. He says he wanted to break through to Melanie and begged her to tell him what was going on. Melanie said she had a revelation from God. She didn't feel safe with me at the house and accused me of being a homosexual. Oh my goodness gracious. It ended with Melanie going to sleep and Brendan was overwhelmed. Wow, unbelievable. Brendan says he texted Charles and Lori expressing his frustration. Lori never responded, but Charles spoke with him on the phone. Brendan went to, so here's the pattern, right? These people all get involved in a cult, and now they are accusing the people who aren't in the cult of being deviant in some, in their minds, deviant in some way. So Charles is being unfaithful. In their minds, it's deviant to be homosexual. So Brendan is homosexual. So they have to turn. I know it's unbelievable, isn't it, Marcia? So they have to turn these people into deviants in some way so that they can justify their treatment toward them. And Marcia, this wasn't the church doing it. It was a cult offshoot of the church that bastardized their beliefs. Brandon says he texted Charles and Lori expressing his frustration. Lori never responded, but Charles spoke with him on the phone. Brandon went to a counselor and spoke with his bishop about the situation. Brandon tears up while saying this was the last time he spoke with Charles. Wow. Brandon never saw Tylee or JJ again. Melanie and Brandon used a mediator to get a divorce. They searched out the lowest conflict way to get a divorce. Brandon got a rental property, and custody arrangements with Melanie were complicated. Melanie said she was scared of Brandon, and he didn't get a lot of time with his children. Wow. Brandon says on the morning of October 2nd, 2019, someone shot at him in front of his house. Interesting, that's the same day that Lori was ordering stuff for her wedding. Who, Marcia? I'm not sure. Can you ask that question again a little bit? Who, what? Brandon says on the morning of October 2nd, 2019, someone shot at him in front of his house. Thomas objects and says this isn't relevant for the issue at hand. Attorneys are now meeting in a sidebar conference. Oh my gosh, that's not relevant? Judge addressing Thomas' objection before the jurors are brought. Smith says the information about Brandon being shot at as part of a common scheme and plan. The defendant with the co-defendant conspired and planned to kill multiple individuals in her world. Smith says it's relevant. Smith says the shooting at Mr. Boudreau is what got law enforcement involved and interested in the case. Thomas says Smith's argument is a stretch at best and asks Boyce not to allow him to testify about the shooting. Boyce overrules the objection and allows Brandon to proceed with his testimony, but warns the state that they must show what they have alleged, that there is common scheme and plan. Jurors are now being brought back in. Brandon now recounting the events of October 2, 2019. He got the kids ready for school, dropped them off, then took one child to daycare and took the last to Melanie's house. Brandon then went to the gym. After he exercised, he left the gym to go to his new house. So the people who brainwash, Chad and Lori were part of the Church of Latter-day Saints, but what they did was they took teachings of that church and twisted them and turned and created new teachings that made a cult. So they bastardized the teachings of the LDS church. There's an example of how they bastardize it is that in the LDS church, they don't believe in multiple lives and reincarnation, but Chad and Lori did. So it was Chad really who created this belief system that a bunch of people still continue to follow. So hope that explains it to you. So after he exercised, he left the gym to go to his new house. Brandon said maybe 5 people knew where he was living. His neighbors who helped him move in, and Melanie, whom he had to tell. As he turned the corner onto the street of his new house, he noticed a Jeep parked really close. Remember the Jeep, okay? Jeep parked really close to a van that was parked on the street. The Jeep Wrangler had a Texas license plate, and there was no tire on the back of the Jeep. Instead, the window was kind of open. Brandon noticed the gun with a silencer pointed out. Suddenly, his window shattered, and he heard a gunshot. Brandon accelerated the car and called 911 as he parked next to the public pool. Brandon says he saw the Jeep come around the corner, and he tried to follow it. The dispatcher told Brandon to park in front of his house, and then the police arrived. No, Marcia, the Church of Latter-day Saints did not know. The Mormon Church did not know they were doing this. But there were certain members of their group that probably did. Certainly Lori and Chad knew what they were doing. Alex knew what they were doing. But it's unclear how many more people in their group knew what they were doing. All right. Brandon met with a detective and remembered that Tylee had a green Jeep Charles had purchased for her, with Texas plates. Brandon knew the VIN number, so he gave it to law enforcement. Charles had given the VIN number to Brandon earlier, as Brandon was an insurance agent and had ran insurance quotes for all their vehicles. After the shooting, Brandon had some beliefs about who did it, and he became concerned. He remembered a bunch of emails Charles sent him before he died about the groups Melanie was in, the religious groups. Brandon went back to check the emails. Most came from Chad Daybell. Brandon says, in my gut, something felt wrong. He contacted law enforcement after he did a Google search for Chad Daybell's name and found Tammy Daybell's obituary. After talking with police, he realized nobody had seen JJ or Tylee for some time. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Marcia. Isn't that interesting? Oh my God. Getting these details is just... Tylee's birth certificate is admitted as evidence. Photo of Tylee from her teenage years is admitted as evidence. When asked where Brandon was when he learned of the bodies of JJ and Tylee had been found, he chokes up and says, I was in my parents' home in their garage. It was the day before my wedding. Oh gosh. Brandon went to Rexburg on June 11, 2020. When he arrived in Rexburg, he met with Larry and Kay Woodcock, and police asked Brandon so Brandon had to identify JJ. Oh, Brandon is crying. Of course he is, sniffing and wiping tears from his eyes when recalling he was asked by police to identify JJ's body. How horrifying. Smith is done with her questions. Thomas will now cross-examine. So now this is the defense asking questions of Brandon. Okay. Thomas asked Brandon about the Google searches he did after he was shot at. Brandon says he searched for Chad Daybell's name to try and get more information about him. Thomas asking Brandon about why Melanie would think he was homosexual. Brandon, she told me God had told her I was homosexual. Thomas follows up by asking Brandon about a video of a friend posted on Facebook of him at the Pink Pony, a club in Alabama. Brandon says that came about because he asked Melanie to give him evidence that he was a homosexual, and she pointed to this video. Unbelievable. Who cares if you're homosexual? Why is that a thing? I'm sorry. Brandon says the Jeep was parked around 20 to 30 feet away from him when a shot was fired from the vehicle. Brandon says he's positive the bullet came from the Jeep. He did not see the muzzle flash, but saw a silencer. I was looking straight at it. Brandon explains why he had the Jeep's VIN. Charles asked him to price auto insurance plans for his vehicles. Thomas asked Brandon why police had him identify JJ. I think I was as close to JJ as Larry and Kay. We were all family. Brandon says they may have asked Larry, but it was pretty overwhelming task to do. Thomas has no further questions. Smith says Brandon does not live in Idaho and asks if he can be released from the subpoena. Nobody opposes. Boys asks if we break. Blah, blah, blah. So I'm pretty sure that was it. That was it. Yeah, I do realize that that's why, but Tigey girl, I know that's why it's considered. I know it's considered a sin in LDS. Well, and also if you're married to somebody, if you're married to a woman and you're saying that you're not homosexual, then it could be a problem if you are homosexual. It's just to make it part of the court conversation. I don't know. It just, I don't understand why it was even brought up by the defense. You know what I'm saying? So what was that going to prove? Like, if they were going to prove in court that he was homosexual, what was that going to do? I mean, how was that going to make a difference to whether Lori conspired to kill these people? I just don't, you know what I mean? It just seems more like a way for them to discredit him, as if it's a discrediting kind of thing. And I don't think finding out that somebody is homosexual is a reason to discredit them. It doesn't mean they are a liar, you know. So anyway, that was really interesting. That was that I learned some things that I hadn't learned before. That's what happens in these trials. We find out proof. We've learned that Tammy died of asphyxiation. We've learned that JJ's hands were rolled up in, multiple layers of tape. We've learned how things, unfolded with Brandon, Boudreau, and Melanie, and how deeply she was involved in everything, and the way she was trying to get away from him was by accusing him of being homosexual, and how quickly everything, I mean, if you really think about how quickly everything, we are going to definitely learn a lot more. But if you also think about how quickly everything unfolded, Chad and Lori meet in October 2018. And I know Lori was reading his books before that. And then bada bing, bada boom, 2019, all people are dying and going missing and getting shot at. And my goodness, it's like these two, I think it was Melanie Gibb who said it was just, fire and gas just waiting to ignite with these two people, Chad and Lori. So anyway, I will plan to do something similar tomorrow. And I'll be, watching during the day. So, please remember to hit the thumbs up. If you're on the replay crew, leave me some comments in the comments below. Let me know what you think. Consider becoming a member and, just have a wonderful rest of your 24 hours, however, wherever you may be. Yay, Tidy Girl. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you. Thank you, Marcia. Thank you for everybody else who stopped by. Have a wonderful evening.